Hello there, this is Jason from Body121Fitness. This video relates to a corresponding written article on the Body121Fitness.com website. The article is called Opposite Movements, a Great Way to Resistance Train. Basically, opposite movements are a type of superset, which is just one of a variety of advanced resistance training methods, and very simple really. It's basically following one exercise with the exact opposite movement. So for example, if you were to do a chest press, that would be your first exercise. Based on the opposite movement, the next exercise would be a wide bar, a wide grip horizontal row. That's the exact opposite. Okay. People train for different reasons, obviously. People have different goals, and also, it varies stereotypically based on based a lot on how old you are. When you're young, you tend to have a decent level, just generally speaking, of functional capacity. A universal muscular cardiovascular fitness. So your functionality really you take for granted, and which is fine. And it's more about looking good, aesthetics. As the years go by, I think we all like to feel good, look good, to a degree, but it becomes less important as the years go by. And what becomes slightly more important is maintaining our physical function, universal functional capability. And the reason I mention aesthetics and universal functional capability is the way that you achieve the highest level of both of those is to develop your muscular and cardiovascular fitness, but particular muscular fitness, in a balanced fashion. So just to sort of clear a few things up, or make a few, maybe this is something you haven't heard before, you wouldn't really have realised, but in terms of what actually looks good aesthetically, if your goal is to look good, it's not size that looks good alone. It's basically balance, it's symmetry, and that's actually a scientific principle. Beauty, part of one of the aspects of what we consider beautiful are things which have perfect symmetry, amongst other things. So training in such a way to promote a universal development, a universal balanced development, will allow you the highest level of aesthetics, what's pleasing to the eye. So that's why universal development, balanced development is important in terms of looking good, and in terms of maintaining physical function. It's the same principle, in that having a certain strength capacity or endurance, strength, or let's just circle that and call it muscular fitness. Having a certain sort of level of muscular fitness, in a certain area of the body and not in other areas, obviously isn't going to give you universal functionality. If you've got massive biceps because that's your favourite exercise, then but you've got no strength in your back or core or legs, then in terms of how that really impacts your life generally, that's not going to grant you universal capability, functional capability. And what is a universal functional capability? It's basically ease of movement, in any direction, whatever you choose to do. A universal muscular fitness. People basically have their favourite exercises because, and it's quite typical of men, they tend to do their exercises which they can see in the mirror. the things which, you know, they want to look good and, you know, feel stronger. And basically they do the things that they do, the exercises that they can see in the mirror, so they can actually see the development. And also, people's favourite exercises tend to be the ones they find easier. Now, the thing about finding exercises easier, I mean, that's because you already have a capability, a capacity there. And typically, stereotypically, what you'll find with men is that they have a stronger upper body, mainly around the front, and a weaker back, weaker core, and no legs, like skinny legs. It's really typical. Similarly, or conversely with women, stereotypically, women have stronger legs and core, comparatively speaking, to their upper body strength, which can be quite low. No upper body strength. So to basically benefit from sort of universal capability, you need to bring your body into balance. And the way to do that is to train, well, obviously provide a balanced training stimulus. And one of the ways to do that is to train using opposite movements. There are, just checking my notes. There are other benefits of training with opposite movements, specifically just by using that technique, which I'll sort of touch upon in a second. But the fundamentals are, or the fundamental benefit is to create some balanced return. Aesthetically, it looks the best. It's a small change everywhere that's really pleasing. You don't have to be a big guy or girl to look great. You know, you just need to be in perfect proportion. And what that also grants you is a universal, you know, physical function. If you've got great core strength, great strength in the legs, matched with your back, front, you know, front of the upper body, rear of the upper body, you know, then you're good to go. You will really feel universally capable, and it is a big change. How often do you see guys who are doing all this upper body work doing core work in the gym or, you know, outdoors? It's very, very rare, apart from a few sit-ups. Now, some of the compound exercises you do when you're using free weights, you need to use the core quite a lot, like the squats, deadlifts. But even so, you could still do specific core work and really feel different as a result of training that way, utilising that training stimulus over a few weeks. So that's the major benefits of training with opposite movements. It's basically to develop something that looks great and also gives you the best physical function. In terms of favourite exercises, the reason that the other exercises are not your favourites is because probably you find them really difficult. And what tends to happen is people will assume that this strength capacity here that they've got, you know, should translate into everywhere on the body. It's just a sort of psychological thing. So when they go and try, you know, like they work legs once in a blue moon, they'll probably work too hard. You know, the intensity will be too much because they'll be trying to do it at the same sort of level capacity that they've got the upper body muscular fitness. And you know, you're working a muscle group that you don't normally use. You're probably working too hard straight off the bat. It's not an enjoyable experience. So then if you think about it, you've got limited time, you know, to do your exercise, and you've got limited energy. What are you going to sort of be more inclined to keep doing? You're probably going to be more inclined to keep doing your favourite exercises and not so much the ones which you find particularly challenging and you don't enjoy so much. This is part of the challenge. The challenge is to have the discipline to do a balanced workout across the body, which will include the exercises that you find particularly challenging, but do them at a level which you're capable at. Again, most men are very keen to go up the weight range. But they do that sacrificing the 4 golden rules of resistance training: perfect technique, full range of movement, speed of exercise, and effort level, although that's less applicable. And if you go up the weight range and you're missing those basics, you're not going to get your development. Your increase in muscular fitness will be severely reduced. Severely. So, it's having the discipline to basically do those exercises which you don't enjoy so much, but at a level which you can manage. Hit the 4 golden rules so that you're going to get the most, because that's the you know, the real world scenario from employing the 4 golden rules, which is just the basics. The energy that you put in, the effort you put in, you take as much of it out. If you do things properly, then your result will mirror your effort. If you're cutting corners, then your results will in no way mirror your effort level. And that's a big reason why people obviously stop training. So having the discipline to make sure that you do develop your body in a balanced fashion is key. And the benefits are huge. You really do notice the difference. I mean, one of the reasons that you'll notice the difference typically is because it's a fresh training stimulus for you. There will be an article on, it's called Please Change Your Training Stimulus. There'll be an article about that in a video, and there'll also be an article about advanced resistance training methods, which is a way to change your training stimulus. One of the ways. So basically, by training in a balanced fashion across the whole body, you'll tend to you'll be working areas which your body doesn't normally work, and as such, it's a brand new training stimulus, and your body will positively adapt to the overload. If you're doing it correctly, you're overloading your body correctly, then you will get a positive adaptation, and it will be quick, and you will feel different considerably. You know, if you want to feel strong, yeah, then really it's in the legs and the core. That's what makes you feel strong, really planted. It's the platform up. But men tend to just do all upper body, particularly at the front. So the way to actually, if you like, make sure that you are training your body in a balanced fashion, just training your body in a balanced fashion, is to adopt this opposite movement principle, where basically each exercise that you do, you follow it by the opposite movement. Now there are a couple of sort of benefits which are unique to doing that, just that, specifically to that, and that is that what you'll find is you'll get an increase in performance. You get an increase in performance because as you do the opposite movement, if you come back and do a second set on the original movement, because you've stretched the muscle by doing an opposite movement, so I'll give you a sort of demonstration. So if you do the chest press, it's triceps, pectorals here, pecs. So these muscles are getting tired, pumped. Yeah, you get toxins. The muscles will swell, blood, toxins will form, lactic acid. When you're getting near your fatigue level, that's to stop you injuring yourself. And then you finish your set, whatever range it is, endurance, hypertrophy, strength. Then you basically wait, whatever your rest period is. Again, it depends what you're trying to achieve. And then you try and do a second set. Now the thing is, if you just go straight in and try and do your second set after your rest, it's the blood hasn't had a chance to flow through the muscle, because as the muscle swells, it restricts blood flow. By doing the opposite movement, so you've done your chest press as movement 1, the opposite movement is, that's your chest press, the opposite movement, as I said, horizontal row. What you're doing in the horizontal row, the prime movers are the bicep, trapezius, rhomboids in the back. But what you're doing every time you do a rep is you're stretching out the pecs and you're stretching out the tricep. So one exercise is one exercise is working the tricep and the chest and stretching the bicep and trapezius rhomboids in the back, and the other exercise is working the bicep, working the rhomboids, working the trapezius and stretching the tricep and stretching the chest. So what happens is when you come back to do your second set on the chest press, you'll find that you have a greater performance level. And let's say you're doing an endurance range, say 20 reps, say 20 to 25 reps. On your first set, you may make 25 reps. Then you go, and if I asked you to wait 60 seconds and then do it again, you'll probably find you only get to 16 reps the second set. And that's because you're pumped. You know, you've already got toxins present in the muscle, and your performance will be impacted quite a lot. If you do the opposite movement, as I just described, the horizontal row, and then come back and do your second set on the chest press, you'll find that instead of being able to do 16 reps, you probably do 20. And that's a huge difference. Percentage terms, and also it's the reps at the very end of your set where you're working really hard, where you're making sure you maintain perfect technique, you're making sure that you've got the full range of movement, you're employing the full range of movement, you're making sure that the tempo of the exercise, you're working it on the negative as you drop the weight to your chest. Yeah. If you maintain all that, it's the final reps which you get the most development from. So to be able to do another 4 is significant. So that's one of the great benefits of working opposite movements. You stretch the muscle group that you just used, and as such you'll increase your performance when you come back to do another set. Now obviously if you're doing the opposite movement each time you do an exercise, then you will by default develop universally. If you think every time you do an exercise around the front of the body, like the fly, that your next set is a reverse fly, squeezing the shoulder blades together at the back, yeah, then each time you work the chest, you're working the back. Each time you work the chest on a press, horizontal row, you're working the back. More elaborate exercises. If you do a straight arm pullover, yeah, do it on the cable machine. As opposed to the bench with a dumbbell, the cable machine is better. Where you've got your tricep press on the cable machine, what you do is you stand in the same position as if you were going to do the tricep press. You've got a pad normally on these multi-cable gym things. You've got a pad which you can put your back against, stand there and do your tricep press. All you do is you slide down, you take the bar, but you slide your body down the pad so that your legs are at 90 degrees, like a square. And that way, so that the bar comes from this level up to here, because you've slid down. And now you've got a full stretch, keep your back flat against the bench, and you're pulling down, straight arm pull over, and then resisting on the negative on the way up. The reason I like this more than the bench straight arm pull over with a dumbbell where you stop, is because you stop here on the bench with the dumbbell directly above your face or chest. On the bench, that's it. Whereas on the cable, you've got resistance all the way through, all the way down. Much more effective at working the chest. So if you do this exercise in terms of opposite movements, the opposite to that would be front arm lateral raise. So you can either use the cable, stand in a scissor position and lift it up, or you could use a dumbbell. Obviously biceps, triceps, that's the opposites. Biceps, one set, triceps next set, come back again. Biceps second set, triceps second set. The point being that if you get into the habit of training that way, then you do by default get a more universal development. And what you also do is, if you stick to this for 3 weeks, which is what I'd suggest, the exercises which you find difficult will become a lot easier. because you'll be doing them regularly. That's what you need to do. It's doing things It's doing things regularly that will give your, will basically give your, increase your muscular fitness. Allow a positive adaptation over a period of time, but you need to be consistently working. So that's basically the concept behind opposite movements. Another thing that's relative about working in opposite movements is you can really reduce the rest profile in between your exercise. And you may want to do this if you're doing like an endurance workout. If you want to get cut, you want to drop some body fat, then you want to maintain the intensity in your workout. You know, you want to really bring the intensity up in your weight training. If you're one of these guys who trains heavy, strength training, and you've got 3 to 5 minute rest between each set, and that's what you do most of the time, it's not surprising that you'll carry a bit of extra weight, because you're probably eating to support your growth, but you don't have, you're training the same stimulus continually, and you haven't got the intensity in your resistance training session. If you train opposite movements, then because you're using a completely the opposite muscle group, you're fresh, theoretically, so you can finish one exercise where you're working to fatigue, and then you can go and do the straight away, almost just get up, walk across, and go and do the second exercise, the opposite movement, opposite muscle group, and great performance. Now obviously it's quite heavy on the cardiovascular, on the heart, but that's what you want. You want your heart rate to stay high, i.e. create a level of intensity within the workout. And there's something that's applicable to creating intensity in your workout, and that's called post-exercise oxygen consumption, and basically also known as afterburn. And basically the way that works is, if you can maintain a certain level of intensity in your training, you actually start utilizing resources you don't have. Let's just say that. You create a deficit. And then what happens is your body will be working to fill that deficit. And you'll be doing that for a period of up to 48 hours after you finish training, depending on what level of intensity you manage to maintain. Ideally, if you can maintain a 70% intensity or higher, then you're going to get amazing post-exercise oxygen consumption. And that's basically sitting at home and you're still burning loads of energy, loads of calories, fat, all the same thing. And opposite movements, supersets, is a great way to achieve that, because you can really cut your rest profile down to a minimum, still train really effectively, and the other thing about it is you can get a lot done in a short period of time. Very effective in terms of time usage. The other benefit of training with opposite movements is where you're stretching the previous muscle. By working the opposite muscle, you're stretching the muscle that you'd used previously as you go through your training. So it's a very healthy way. It's a very healthy way to train. You're stretching your body as you go through your workout. One thing I haven't mentioned is one of the negatives about doing your favourite exercises, the ones you can see in the mirror predominantly, is you create strength imbalances across the body. And basically the strength imbalances around the joint will basically make you prone to injury. It's quite common to see guys, training quite heavy and then they're rubbing their shoulders afterwards. It's very common for men to have strong, you've got deltoids on the shoulder, there's 3 of them, and the anterior deltoid at the front, very common to have a lot of strength there and nothing at the back. And the humerus, the main bone here, sits in a shallow socket, and it's just really held in place by muscle. So it's not like the hip joint, which is a proper ball and socket. This just literally sits in your shoulder, sits in a shallow dish. So it's really held in place by the muscle, and that's it. So you can imagine if you've got a great, a significant strength capacity in the front, muscular fitness in the front, nothing at the back and limited in the middle, typically you come in and you haven't warmed up properly, or which is quite often the case, people try and do some silly set just before they leave, when they're most tired, and they try and do some really heavy, I'll just give that a go before I go, and then the technique goes out the window, and they're sort of squirming around a bit, trying to finish it, which you should never do. And that's when that imbalance will, lead to an injury, shoulder impingement or something. So this is why it's really important to have a balanced, stabilization around the joint by developing universally. So, yes, is there anything else that I should mention? So what you can also do is you can employ opposite movements when you're working you can integrate opposite movements into other advanced resistance training methods. Other advanced resistance training methods, there's going to be a video about those and an article. There are many, and really they relate to changing your training stimulus. You can change your training stimulus in many ways, and the theory behind it is your body only reacts to the same stimulus for a short period of time. If you overload the body correctly, you'll get a positive adaptation where your muscular fitness or your cardiovascular fitness basically develops to support this new stimulus. But if the stimulus stays the same, then your development, your positive adaptation, then levels off quite quickly, say about 3 weeks. So you really want to be changing your training stimulus every 3 weeks or 6 to 8 sessions with resistance work. And the way you can do this is obviously you can switch between rep ranges. There's going to be an article called Please Change Your Training Stimulus. So I won't go into it in too much detail because this is supposed to stay focused on opposite movements. But one way you can change your training stimulus is to switch what you're doing. If you're doing strength work, you can change to doing endurance work for 3 weeks. Or you can, if you're doing endurance, you can move to hypertrophy. That's just moving the rep ranges around. But you can also change your training stimulus by utilising a different advanced resistance training method. Pyramids, reverse pyramids, drop sets, pre-exhaust sets, post-exhaust sets, sevens, done properly. I'll explain that at another time. Trisets, giant sets. But again, when you're employing these advanced training methods as a fresh stimulus, build in opposite movements. So if you're doing a triset on the chest, trisets is about working the same muscle group across 3 different planes of movement. This a good example I can show you sitting in the chair is the chest. Your weakest angle to work the chest from is an incline. That's your weakest. Here, incline. Flat press is your next strongest, and the most strongest angle to work the chest is decline. That's why you see people on the flat bench press, and what they do is they arch their back. The reason they're arching their back is so they can push down into it, because that's their stronger angle, which you don't want to do. You want to keep your back flat and develop the strength here. So obviously if you do incline, flat press and then decline, that would be a tricep. 3 planes of movement across the same muscle group. You're activating different muscle fibers. And if you haven't trained using triceps previously, then train triceps for 3 weeks. And you will have a great positive adaptation, as long as you've selected the correct weight and you're correctly overloading the muscle. i.e. not too easy. So, but you know, if you're going to, for example, use triceps, then build in opposite movements. So do two triceps on the chest, and then go and do two triceps on the back. There are obviously many different ways to train, and I'm not saying that you know, this is the way you should train the whole time. But it is important that you do provide yourself a balanced stimulus across the whole body. That you should aim to do all the time. Opposite movements is just a good way to achieve that. And I'd also point out that I'm not just talking about upper body movements. Opposite movements apply to core work as well. So if you're going to do a crunch on the Swiss ball, then the next exercise, the opposite, would be a lower back raise or back extension on the Swiss ball. If you're going to do a plank, yeah, core work, stabilization, static, isometric, you basically hold the plank position on the floor. The next exercise you would do is a bridge using the Swiss ball. What I will do is I will put some links, because you may not know what a bridge is, you know, off the top of your head. So I'll put a link to some pictures of a couple of the exercises which you might not have heard of. So you know, the point is to build in the opposite movements to your core work as well. If you do some core work on the front, make your next set some core work on the back. You know, which focuses more predominantly on the back. You know, and then going into the lower body. If you're doing a leg extension, make your next set a leg curl. Hamstrings, leg extension, quadriceps, and partially hip flexor. Opposite movement, leg curl, hamstring. Again, universal development. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Once you get into the habit of it, it's very easy. Sometimes trying to figure out actually what the opposite movement is, it's not too difficult on the really obvious, you know, fly, reverse fly, shoulder press, lat pull down, chest press, horizontal row, you know, lat raise like this. Yeah. What's the opposite to that? Take the handles. It's a decline. It's a decline fly. It's a great way to train. Really healthy, very economic with time. You can get great intensity in your workout if you're looking to, you know, maintain some intensity to get cut. It creates a balanced return which looks the best and also gives you the best physical, universal physical capability, physical functionality. So that's the end of the video relating to opposite movements, a great way to resistance train. As I say, there are other videos for you to watch. The written articles will be slightly more concise. That's just the nature of me recording videos, unfortunately. But there will also be a written article and a video relating to the advanced resistance methods that I mentioned, in terms of a good way of changing your training stimulus, and there'll actually be an article relating to changing your training stimulus and the principle behind that and why you should do that. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Obviously, Body121Fitness does offer personal training services online, home, outdoor, or gym based. If you go to the website, all our services are listed there, along with, as I say, many other articles which hopefully will either encourage you to start exercising if you don't already, or help you get the most out of your training. So that's it. Thank you very much.